Welcome back to the Mining and Markets podcast by Senergy Capital. Joining us today is the CEO of Brixton Metals Corp, which trades on the Venture Exchange under symbol BBB and on the OTC under BBXF, Mr. Gary Thompson. Gary, welcome to the show. I've been following the Brixton story for a bit now, probably since, late 2002 when BHB became a strategic, and that's when I started to really pay close attention. So it's a great pleasure to speak with you today.
Yeah, definitely happy to be here. Thank you.
Why don't we start off by you giving a brief description of the company and what the main focus is?
Sure. Brixton's a junior exploration company. I'm really focused on critical minerals, dominantly copper, gold, focused on our flagship project called Thorn up in northwest British Columbia on the sort of golden triangle trend. And we're actively drilling with our largest drill campaign ever this season, and looking forward to some big drill results. And yeah, we're excited to see what the season can bring us.
So let's dive into that a little bit further. The company's flagship copper porphyry project is, probably one of the largest properties in the area and perhaps Canada. Can you give a bit of detail around the project, its location, and why you believe it's a unique play in the Golden Triangle? Specifically how it differs from other juniors in the area, because there's quite a few operating there, but this project has obviously got the attention of big players such as BHB. So I just wanted to get a sense of the uniqueness and why you think it caught the eyes of a major player like that.
Well, yeah, I think a couple things. It is definitely unique in that it is actually technically the largest contiguous mineral claim holdings in British Columbia, and certainly one of the largest in Canada. And I think in part that's what attracted the world's largest miner, BHP, to the story. But if you look at we like to show the geochem map on our website, because while it's still relatively early, there's so much discovery potential here. And, I'd say what's unique about it is, we'll say further up the trend, and we've been quietly assembling these claims. So we have quite a large block with, I think, 14 target areas that have been identified. And when I say target areas, I mean multi-kilometer target areas. Most of the work that we've been doing is really focused on, we'll say 2, 3. There's always sort of up and coming targets that we're moving up the curve. But I would classify it as, discovery rich copper gold porphyry district. And I guess the way to describe some of these target areas, and some may be related to each other, it's such a big area, is that consider it a complete mineral system. In fact, I'd argue that we may have 2 complete mineral systems. And when I say that, I mean, we have the northern portion of the property where we've done most of the work on is related to Cretaceous age porphyry intrusions that are 95 million year old mineralized intrusions. So that's one area. And that's probably, if you look at that whole Cretaceous age zone, you're probably talking 40-kilometer trend there. And then if you shift down to the central part of the property, well, we've also got some very encouraging copper gold numbers over another 30, 40-kilometer area. But those are different rocks. Those are like 220 million year Triassic age porphyry intrusions. So different mineralizing event timeline for sure, but also another large-scale mineralizing system. So I would argue we have 2 complete mineral systems. And within those mineral systems, we've got multiple deposits that we're advancing, exploring. But taking a step back, this year, the bulk of the budget is going to be focused on our Camp Creek porphyry, which is a new blind porphyry discovery that we made a few years ago. And then the other significant portion of the budget is going to what's called the Trapper target. It's more of a gold, epithermal gold target that we believe may be related to a copper porphyry at depth. And one of the things I like to remind people is some of the largest gold deposits in the world are copper porphyry systems. So they tend to be, you don't always get gold with porphyry systems, but a lot of times you look at these things as copper gold. Some may be more gold rich, some may be more copper rich, but tend to get other metals. And we do have like silver and molybdenum as well as byproducts in some of these systems.
Right. So, you did announce that commencement of drilling has begun. Given the size of this project and, the extensive program that you guys did last year, which maybe you can talk a little bit about, what's the strategy on targets this year? And is the objective to simply expand mineralization and eventually seek out that high-grade porphyry system? Or is there anything else that you can share for this particular drill program?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a similar strategy that we've been using last year. I mean, the bulk of the focus was really on Camp Creek and Trapper. We've yet to test close off the limits to the mineralized zones that we've been drilling there. So the goal is really to, try and find the limits of the system, but also we don't believe we perhaps drilled the best intercepts, let's say the way to put it. And so we're always looking for that momentum hole that can really help drive the story forward. So it's advancing these things, expanding them on strike at depth. But concurrent with that, we continue to advance some of the earlier stage targets that have not seen any drilling. So we've got a number of other large scale targets like Metla, the north target, the east target, the west target, for the lack of better names, but just generally where they are. There's always up and coming targets. And, a good example is we've had a zone that we were drilling early on in the company's history from about, I don't know, I guess 2012 to 2014, a zone called Outlaw, which is actually a sediment hosted gold zone, which has a 5 kilometer surface soil and rock geochemistry footprint. So quite a large mineralizing system there. And, we drilled like 60 meters of a gram, and we have it sort of mapped out, as about a 600-meter zone within that, from drilling within that sort of 5-kilometer anomaly. But then when we started to get onto Trapper, some of the grades that we're pulling on Trapper have been phenomenal. 64 meters of 5.7 grams gold and some very high grade surface gold samples. So as much as we like the Outlaw gold target, Trapper it kind of moved up the rank. So we're always doing these rankings. So even though we have many targets and, we can't really work them all, what we try and do is rank these things each season to say, okay, where does this target fit into the rest of the targets? Because we're doing exploration and we're finding new stuff all the time. And you don't want to get too tunnel focused on maybe one target when you could have something better over there. And that example I just gave you on the Outlaw target that kind of got downgraded because Trapper got upgraded because it looks like a much higher grade system at surface there. So you just got to keep optimizing the targets and where we spend the budget. So this year we had about a $14 million budget, and we hope to get about 20,000 meters out of the season. And that will include a lot of, like I say, geochem and prospecting and mapping on some of these earlier stage targets that maybe by the end of the year we can get a few holes into some of these other targets that haven't seen any drilling yet. We're still, I would say, classify Brixton as we're still in the discovery phase, really, even though we've been at this thing for a long time. The last few years, I'd say, and if you go back, even 3 years, we had about a $5-6 million budget. Last year was 11 million. This year is 14, maybe a bit more. Next year, I'm hoping it's 20. So we can see that it's really been the last, really 3-4 years where budgets have been significant enough to generate the kind of results we need to move this thing forward.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about the location. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys are just north kind of the Golden Triangle area, which is, a pretty underexplored area. Has there been any historical drilling? And are you guys using any of that for data? What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, there was. In fact, if you look at some of our old assessment reports that we file on an annual basis, there's a pretty extensive historical database. And I think, we data mined about 150 old assessment reports from other operators in the area. So we were able to utilize a lot of that data, some drilling, a lot of geochem data, definitely, a lot of value in that data. And we're certainly incorporating those early results into our program. And, it's kind of an iterative process. You have some data, historical or not, or stuff that you're collecting, and then you just add on to it, and you're kind of building the database as you go. And again, like I said, you kind of optimize it based on the results that other operators have had or results that we're getting. And, some of the success that we're having is based on other operators' success, and we just kind of extend on that. Like Trapper is a good example. Ocean Park drilled some holes about 100 meters from, we didn't actually own the Trapper main claims until 2020, but there was a company called Ocean Park that was in there that drilled some holes, like I say, 100 meters from our claim boundary. And then so we stepped to the west, which was basically where our claims were before. So that was successful for us, and that kind of led us into now Trapper target that we're drilling. It's a bit of a combination of those things, I would say. But, the earliest work goes back to, I think, 1952. Caminco and Kenco, Chevron was in this area in the 80s. They did a pretty broad scale regional, did a lot of good work in there in the 80s. So that was sort of, some of the early foundation of some of the prospects that were identified and sampled. And now we're just, continuing to advance on them.
I'm excited to see how this drill campaign unfolds. I know it can be a little bit hard to speculate on timing, especially given big drill holes. When can investors expect maybe the first set of assays to be released?
Yeah, if I knew that, I'd give you some dates, but we really don't know. It's been, the turnaround times have been, I would say, pretty varied. I mean, just look at last year, we had some results generated fairly quickly, but then as the season rolled on, the timelines, became 2 to 3 months. So I hate to speculate on that. All we can do is wait. We did get a fairly early start to the season, and so I'm hoping July, August will be the start of a bunch of news flow, but it's really hard to put a date on it.
Yeah, just to switch focus a little bit and talk about some of your other projects. I know you guys have been optioning out some of them, such as Hog Heaven to Ivanhoe, which, by the way, is great to see interest from a company like that. With a strong balance sheet of, I think, 17 million in the till, can we assume the majority of the funds will be spent on Thorn, or are you guys planning on doing some other exploration work at the other projects?
Yeah, we're absolutely focused on Thorn. That's our flagship. We do not have any budget for the other projects. We also farmed out our Atlan Goldfields project to a company called Pacific Bay, and we're looking to do the same to Langus so that we can really focus. If you look at our portfolio, we think we have a strong portfolio of projects, but we are still sub 100 million market cap company, and if you look at the size of the prize, if you will, the Thorn project really ticks a lot of boxes from the scale. You really can't compare the scale potential to the other projects. I think it serves our shareholders well to really focus the team and our resources on the Thorn project.
Can you briefly discuss the share structure for some of the investors listening right now, as well as noteworthy shareholders in the company, as I know there's some big names which I alluded to in the beginning?
Yeah, right now the company has about 380 million shares outstanding. The largest shareholder is BHP, 19.9, the world's largest miner. Crescat Capital is our second largest shareholder. They're in that sort of 15 to maybe 19%. And then Eric Sprott. And if you look at the size of the company, actually, we're pretty proud to have three billionaires as shareholders, Eric Sprott, Robert Friedland, and Rob McEwen. Now, Robert Friedland's position has been converted into Ivanhoe Electric as part of that joint venture deal we have at Hog Heaven project. But so I'd say it's a good group of shareholders in the company. And of course, management, myself, I own considerable amount of stock in the deal. So I think, like I say, we're still in that discovery phase. We feel we have not hit the hole that really will catapult Brixton into a different level. And that's what we're gunning for. Every drill hole, right? You're potentially one hole away from the big hole that can make a big move on the stock. And for us, that's what we're trying to get to, is that momentum hole that can help launch us. And I think that's the opportunity for shareholders. If you look at, where BHP came in at the end of 2022 at 18 cents, we're in and around that price point. So while we've had a run up to 30 cents and tagged 100 million market cap, we're currently sitting at, 65, 70 million market cap in around the BHP entry level. So I think it's a good time to be looking at a company like Brixton, and certainly keep an eye on those drill results when they start coming out.
And, just as we wrap up, what can investors expect in terms of news flow and upcoming catalysts throughout the summer going into the new year?
Well, it's going to be all about the drilling. I would say, look for some, I can't guarantee any drill results, but I can, just looking at what we did last year, some of the holes we had and some of the previous drilling at, say, Camp Creek, 820 meters of almost 0.5% copper equivalent. I think one of the best holes in Camp Creek was 554 meters of 0.9 copper equivalent. So more copper dominant. So we have two main targets, just to remind listeners. Camp Creek is a copper porphyry. It's copper, gold, silver, moly, but it's copper dominant. We're drilling deep holes there, 1,200 meter plus potentially. So expect some big copper holes coming out of that. And then on the Trapper target, it's more gold dominant. I think our longest hole there was about 400 meters of a gram. And probably one of the better holes was hole 205, I believe, that returned, that I mentioned earlier, 64 meters of 5.7. So those are the kind of results we've generated in the past. I would hope and I would expect that we would be getting similar or potentially better results than that. That's really the catalyst for us is going to be all about drilling. I would say for the next few years to really demonstrate the caliber and the scale of this system. So I think there's a unique opportunity here.
And lastly, to switch focus, investors and even banks are predicting a potential copper rally in the next 6 to 12 months. However, as we both know, there's been a recent decline in prices, predominantly due to weakened demand in traditional sectors such as construction and even consumer goods. So my question for you is, do you anticipate further decline in the price of copper in the short term, or do you believe that it's reached its lowest point as of right now?
Yeah, it's a tough one to gauge. My read on the market is that we're pretty close to the bottom of pricing for copper. And either way you shape it, with or without the energy transition, which is going to be a huge driver going forward, I think the demand for copper is projected to outstrip the supply. we're seeing major copper producers scrambling for assets. You're seeing a lot of M&A happening in the space. I think a lot of miners are concerned about the lack of supply there, and there's going to be competitive tension to control the copper supply as much as the miners can, in a sense that we need new mines. If you look at the demand curve, the amount of mine development is projected is phenomenal. And so that only means to me one thing is longer term price is going to go higher. What is the price? I mean, I'm surprised we're not sitting at $5 copper today, but I could see $5, even $10 copper in a not too distant future. We're already starting to see a lot of action in the space. Maybe not so much on pricing, but I think that will come as the years come on. There's just not enough supply coming on, and it takes a lot longer to build these mines than people think. So that's the other challenge, I think, as the sector goes. You can't just fire up a copper mine. They take to find and develop and build. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that evolves. But yeah, my projections certainly higher.
That's great insight. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for your time today, Gary. For everyone still listening right now, if you enjoyed this episode and you want to follow some other companies, make sure to like and subscribe, as we plan to be putting out frequent episodes every week or every 2 weeks. So once again, thank you, Gary.
You're very welcome. Thank you.